I've stumbled upon the top 5 tactics in Football Manager 2023, and we're going to look over those tactics together in this video, and hopefully we'll uncover what's trending in FM23 this year, especially the beta version, and see what the top 5 tactics do have in common. By looking at what's trending this year, you should be able to, by the end of this video, know what works in Football Manager and use that as a guide to creating your tactics. Not that you have to follow them verbatim, but it will serve as a sort of threshold for you to, let's say, if you're in a tough spot or whatever in Football Manager 2023. If you like Football Manager content, do well to subscribe to the channel and also leave a like for the video. It helps support the channel as well. So in at number 5 is a back 3 system with 5 defensive midfielders or 3 defensive midfielders and then 2 wing backs on attack duty. A lot of players are on attack duty in this tactic. It's known as the 3-5-2 sarjo tactic. 2 advanced forwards on attack, ball-playing defenders, both of them are on defend duty. There's a super keeper on support, and then you have a central defender on stopper duty. There are 2 segundo volante in this tactic, and they're put on attack duty, and then you have a holding midfielder in the defensive midfielder on support. It's the mentality for this tactic is attacking, and then the in possession instructions, what they do have here is a very high tempo and then run at defense instructions. There's a lot of playing through the middle, as you can see from the player instruction and from the player roles as well. The segundo volantes are going to be doing a lot of the running in this tactic to cover that gap between the attackers and the midfielders. So play through the midfield is quite understandable for this tactic. There's narrower width also complements the segundo volante and helps them in their running. Walk the ball into the box as well, also instructions that are suitable for this tactic. In transition, they go on to have roll the ball to the center halves and the fullbacks, but there are no fullbacks, so that's just weird. And then counter press and counter, very effective for this kind of tactic. It's very attacking for what I'm seeing, but it's also very solid because although you have wing backs on attack duty, there's a gate. I'm going to call this a gate because there's a gate of 5 players that the opposition has to clear or to somehow tear through to try and get through and try and create goals and score for themselves. So solid, let's say defensively you look quite solid, because even if they do get through the defensive midfielder, the central defender here is on stopper duty and he can go in and just clap the opposition's attacker and then try to win the ball back. And then once the ball is won, you are off on the break as well, because there's so much, let's say the opposition has to commit so much players in front in order to try and create chances. So it means that there will be space less for you at the back to try and get those goals or hit the opposition on the counter attack. The next tactic that we're looking at is the midfield beef. The file that you find on the FM-based community might not give you this tactic, so I went on to recreate the tactic, and then I'm going to attach a link in the description so you can download this tactic for yourself and see how it works out for you. By the way, I haven't tested most of these tactics, but I'm trying to look at what the tactics do have in common, and I can see that a higher tempo does work here. And then looking at the hit early crosses instruction, that's something I quite fancy in Football Manager 2020 that I know in my experience has actually worked in the game for me. But looking at the player roles, there's a pressing forward on attack and then 2 inverted wingers on attack as well. The wing backs are on support duty, and then I kind of like the shape of the midfield because I know that it's going to sound like there is a gap in between these two. So you're going to need everybody to press a lot. But what I like about the midfield is the ball-winning midfielder on support duty and the box-to-box midfielder also on support. Those players can go up and down, and then I know for the box-to-box, he's going to get into the box and also help out defensively when the opportunity presents itself. When out of possession for this tactic, they even asked to trap the opposition inside. That's a wider defensive line, and let me say, from what I've experienced in this game, I don't know how well this is going to work because there is no defensive midfielder, and then you're playing with a wider defensive width, because that's essentially what trap inside means. When you're spreading the opposition, when you're spreading your defense to try and force the opposition to come into the inside spaces, which means you're closing the wide areas. If you don't have a defensive midfielder in there, you might have a problem, but it's also something up for testing. Let's just see how the tactic works out. In at number 3 is Zaz Frost 0.1. Zaz has made overpowered tactics for Football Manager 2022, 2021 as well. Even FM20, I think Zaz also made tactics for those games, and he's quite good at making overpowering tactics or OP tactics in Football Manager. So this is the Frost 0.1. It also has good results in FM 2023 as well, the beta version. And there's inverted wing backs on attack duty, and then you have a roaming playmaker on support with 2 ball-playing defenders on defend and the super keeper on support. You see this back 5? This back 5 seems to be like the holy grail of Football Manager 2022, and in FM23 surely it's showing that it seems to have good results as well. It's something worth testing as well. And then looking at the central midfielder on attack duty, on paper it does look like this tactic is going to be weak defensively, but in attack they're going to be quite deadly and very difficult to stop. There's a false line of support duty. I kind of like this role a lot, and then he's going to drift into the midfield areas and then creating space for everybody else, not just the inside forwards that are going to get into the box. The central midfielders on attack duty, the roaming playmaker on support, and the inverted wing backs on attack duty, they will somehow get inside the box and they will try to score goals. So this is like the definition of overpowered. The team instructions for Zaz Frost 0.1 are quite soft. I do like that there are not that many team instructions, just a higher tempo and then walk the ball into the box with low crosses. And if you do have quick players that are, let me say, not so tall, that could work very well in your favor. Just the counter press and then the counter and then roll it out. And then when you're out of possession, the team has been asked just to prevent your goalkeeper distributions and to press. Just keep pressing. Oh no, the high line. There is a high line of engagement, so you're triggering the high press. Your objective, looking at the players that you have in front, is to try and win the ball back as soon as possible when the opposition has come out of their box a bit, so you're not overly pressing the opposition's team. It's quite good. I like this one. In at number 2 is Zaz Fire 0.3. This is more Zaz, I have to admit. The shape is a lot like something Zaz would create, and there's a shadow striker on attack duty and then 2 advanced forwards on attack. There are 2 wingers on support duty, and then you have the holding midfielder, which is a roaming playmaker on support. Inverted wing backs on attack duty are also deployed for this tactic. You can see the defense again. This is very similar in this similar back 5 or back 6, including the goalkeeper that we just talked about in the previous tactic. This is a bit more adventurous, and the fact that you have 2 center forwards also means that you're going to be a lot more attacking than the previous tactic, because everybody here is going to try to create chances for the 2 advanced forwards, and even the shadow striker on support duty is also going to try to get into the box and disrupt the opposition's defense. The mentality for this one is positive, so there's some level of control, and then higher tempo, similar tactics or similar team instructions to the previous Zaz Frost tactic. So low crosses as well, roll the ball out, same thing, just like the Frost tactic. And then looking at the out of possession instructions, there's a high press. This time he's using a much higher defensive line. I think that's because of the gaping hole where the roaming playmaker is the only central midfielder or central defensive midfielder in there, so he's going to need some help from the back line. So having a high defensive line is quite useful in this case, and there's also drop off more, trying to help the team out defensively so they don't concede too many goals, because as it is right now, they're quite open and vulnerable to chances. So much more often trigger press, prevention, goalkeeper distribution. That's the Zaz Fire. Before we look at the final number 1 spot and see which tactic is voted the highest, or let me say the most overpowered tactic in Football Manager 2023 beta so far, feel free to hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button. It helps this video a lot. It helps the channel a lot. So in at number 1, it's a 4-3-3. I'm actually happy that the overpowered, or let's say the most overpowered tactic in FM 2023 beta, as voted by FM based community, it's a 4-3-3. So inside forwards on attack, and then I like the Metzala on attack duty in this row, but this just screams tiki-taka, tiki-taka, tiki-taka. And then looking at the mentality is quite positive, and then there's a shorter passing directness with more width as well. So there's a lot going on in this tactic. You can see the players have been asked to dribble less and also walk the ball into the box while playing those low crosses. Pass into space is quite prevalent in this tactic as well, to try and encourage players to make those runs into open gaps so you can find through balls. There's going to be a lot of through balls with this tactic. Halfback on defend duty, one of my favorite roles, and then you have the ball playing defender. There's a lot of balance with this tactic, I have to admit. Wing back on support duty, full back on attack duty. I'm trying not, the only roles that do repeat themselves in this tactic is the inside forwards on either side, and that's because they're going to be taking advantage of the space left behind by the deep line forward, a role that I've also come to embrace in recent years. The team instructions, looking at the tempo, we have seen the tempo. Looking at when they're in transition, the goalkeepers were asked to roll it out to the centre backs, and then they've also been asked to distribute it quickly. Just get the ball rolling so you can go on to or try to start the play as soon as possible. Counter and counter press have also been turned on. That's something that has stayed consistent throughout all the tactics that we've seen so far. High pressing with much higher defensive line. So you're going to need a really, really good team to get this tactic to not ship in many goals, but you will have control of the ball. You will have a lot of possession of the ball, which is what the dribble less instruction goes on to say. And then prevention goalkeeper distributions. Okay, the drop-off kind of helps the defense to close up the space when they're facing a counter-attack, something like that. And so far, so good. It kind of looks like a solid tactic that I'm going to want to test out, especially with a team that has very good ball passes, regardless of the league that they're in. So those are the top 5 tactics from the FM-based community, voted as the top 5 tactics for Football Manager 2023 beta that you can go on to test, and also eventually when the game comes out you can go on to test these tactics as well. I'm going to leave a download link so you can download tactics for yourself in the description down below.